Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 401 of the Orange Pill Investor. And that is a little Easter egg for the strategy options panel um, that I've got cooking. I'm going to go over uh, financial independence, retire early. So there's a fire calculator for Bitcoin. But of course, I quit my job in December. So mine's like fire return. Fire fire MSTR options, um, which is a nice little metaphor because options have Greeks and then there's Greek fire, Greek FIRE. Get it? Um, but yeah, so I'm excited because I'm finally beating the ETFs, and it only took 3.5 months, um, by just of like 5 grand. So the original account started with 215. And unfortunately, like, I would do a little bit more dunking, except both accounts are still down. The account started with 215. I think my covered call strategy is at, like, 210, and, the ETFs are at, like, 205 or something. However, January 23rd, strategy was at 373, so we're actually down $12 a share, so that's, like, 3-4%. Um Actually, I think I misspoke. I think I'm actually yeah, so I'm not down 3%. I'm only down like 2 grand, which is like 1% or something. So, my covered calls have finally in 3 months, finally slightly, barely by a smidge outperformed buy and hold, just straight strategy shares, and have a slight lead on the ETFs. So, they were beating my brains in for like 3 months straight. And so now that I'm winning by a hair, I should just quit the challenge and declare victory, since I've been beating them for 24 hours. That's just a joke. I'm going to keep running this probably through at least the end of 2025. I'll give MSTY the last chance. Whatever the December dividend pays out, we'll call that the end of that challenge. And same thing with IMST. We'll give them one more chance in December to pay out their dividends, and then we'll call that the finish line. So no, I was just kidding about quitting. And let me see the chats here. What's up, strategy? Fuck me. So Troll Sense is where the jams, DJ Soleil. So the whole time I was listening to Firestarter, but of course I didn't share it. Man, you take a few days off and you can't remember how to run a podcast. I wasn't even sharing my screen, so what the hell were you staring at the whole time? Just me looking stupid? That's hilarious. Well, I was enjoying it. What's up, Dana? Joshy, good morning. Hope you had a blast in New York and welcome back to the desk. Yeah. Uh, Friday was funny. Trying to trying to cast in that little pod. It was pretty cheap. No, when I say cheap, it was still probably like $200 a night. But for New York City, that's pretty cheap. Charles, come see Soleil live at Orlando event for his options panel with MSTR True North. Damn, right on time, troll. A resounding victory. No need to say further. Yeah, exactly. I pulled ahead halfway around the first turn. Let's just we're done. We're done with this. That's all I need is for strategy to crash 10-20%, and then I gotta play the catch-up game again for 3 more months. Joshy, per their most updated 8K, only about 128 million left on the ATM. How do you feel about your covered call running into earnings later this week? Personally, I'm not closing any of mine yet. Stock will most likely dump due to loss in algos unless they announce another great purchase plan. They hinted at something. They hinted at some more announcements. And the fact that the ATM has run dry makes me think like they might renew the damn thing. But, I'm hoping that they would just turf it over to the preferreds, Strike and Strife. Maybe just start running the ATM on that, and I can stop caring about the ATM. Especially since they haven't blown through all of their convertible bond money. Like, if they refilled the tank on the ATM but didn't use up all their convertible bonds, I might facepalm on that one and just be like, "What the fuck? This not again. This can't be happening." But to answer your question, with my main account that I trade, with no strings attached, I will probably close all of my, near at the money covered calls for sure. I refuse to use margin, so I'm gonna have to, let's see, it'll cost me 2,500 to close these now. So I'm gonna have to come up with 1,500 bucks. So I'll either have to sell some long calls to pay for it. Now that you mention it, I think I'm just gonna sell these bad boys. I can sell all of my call debit spreads for a profit right now. So that's kind of cool. Or I can just peel off, some Septembers. All my hopes and dreams have been moved over to the Septembers. I also still have 2 poor man's covered calls that I could liquidate. That would give me about 26,000. Yeah. So anyway, just a few little tweaks to maybe pay for this roll, or to cover these early. But in the challenge account, I'm just gonna treat that like a covered call ETF would. Now I know somebody mentioned, I think it might have been Dan. He mentioned that in the MSTY holdings, they were just long. So I don't know if that's a weird thing where they closed some positions, but the new ones hadn't been posted. But I didn't think that was even in there. I don't necessarily know that they have a charter that they have to follow certain rules, but it's a dividend covered call strategy. So I thought they were basically covered all the time. So I don't know if that's just a timing thing with their announcements, and I'll have to go back and double check and see if they put the covered positions back in there. But I'm going to go ahead and assume that same trading rule, that in the challenge account I have to be covered all the time. But in this account where I don't care about the challenge, I will take off all of my near at the money covered calls, just in case it runs up big time. These are going to be the annoying ones, because what I would normally do with these is when the price starts to run against me, I just sit on my hands and do nothing. So I sold them for 12, they're worth 21. I'd have to pay an extra 900 bucks per contract in extrinsic value. And the whole point of an option seller is to sell it and then buy it back for less, not sell it and buy it back for more. That's backwards. So if something crazy happened, I suppose these could all get wrecked, but it still won't be the end of the world because I'm still way over leveraged in this account. There's about, let's see, this is like 966 delta in long calls in this section. So that's like 1,000 shares. And then, this is another 1,300 shares uncovered. The poor man's covered call nets over 100 delta as well between the two. So there's a ton of unlimited upside here, but for sure I'm going to take off at least 5 of these, maybe 10. And then if I have, if I just go ahead and leave, actually, you know what? I'd probably rather take off these because the extrinsic value that I'll have to pay is much less. So maybe I'll leave the 375s on and I'll take the 380s, the 400s, and the 425s off. Let's see, Trillstein, let's dig into that humor writing tutorials bookmarks tab. Give us some Josh Man dad jokes before we kick off this episode. You know what's hilarious? That's got to be really small, but I know damn well what people are going to be up to. So there's some stuff that I leave up here on purpose, just waiting for someone to be like, why in the hell do you have that bookmarked? And even like my background tabs, at some point, hopefully I won't accidentally leave up some like tentacle porn or something. You know what I'm saying? That would be kind of embarrassing. But yeah, some of this stuff I leave up here just for fun to see if anybody notices. But yeah, this is actually a pretty good one. It's the hell's that guy's name that writes Dilbert? But anyway, he came up with he wrote this humor writing tutorial and it was actually pretty decent. Dad jokes is not in there though. Let's see, Dana. He didn't just hint. He said it was going to be similar to last earnings call, which was epic. I know that got me pumped. Got me so pumped. Don't be scared, there, Dana. There's nothing to fear but fear itself and absolute financial ruin. So nothing, nothing to be afraid of. Dude face. They did get approval, I thought, to issue as much ATM as they want per the vote to expand share count last quarter. Yeah, you might be right. They something like, I don't know, like endless billions of of shares, right? But I think they still have to inform the plan. They announced the plan, and then if they went ahead and just, then again, maybe I don't know. Um, yeah, I'm probably just talking on my ass. I don't know what they're kind of obligated by law to disclose versus what they disclose just because they're into transparency. So let me just shut up before I say something completely wrong. John says, do you think MSTY will be able to sustain an elevated higher share price after strategy takes its next leg up? Strategy stabilizes bottoms around 1,000. Wow. Bottoms at 1,000. I was thinking they would hit 1,000 and then bottom at 500, you know, um, and then maybe stabilize around 750. But that's just me. That's just like for fun. I don't do price targets. I don't do valuation models. Um, Beyond it's going up forever, Laura. Like beyond that, I don't really do price targets. But to answer the question, it's weird because while MSTY and MSTR are correlated to a certain extent in the same way that Bitcoin and strategy are correlated, there are some overlaps between the people who are buying Bitcoin and the people who are buying strategy. However, MSTY's price doesn't have to do anything, even if MSTR goes up. So MSTY's price is the combined buying and selling activity of all of the people that are interested in that particular ticker. And a lot of times when Bitcoin is pumping, MSTY holder, shoppers and MSTR shoppers both get excited at the same time. But it's perfectly possible that strategy could pump and MSTY's price could not change, or strategy could go down, but people don't bail off of their MSTY shares because they want the dividend. I fully expect for MSTY to be, I don't know, half as volatile as strategy. But let's read this damn thing for the third time and see if I can actually answer it. Do I think MSTY will be able to sustain an elevated higher share price? Yes. I think on average, it will probably trade up at some multiple of strategy. With the covered call and the dividend selling, like maybe you could cut the vol in half. So like MSTR sprinkles in volume with leverage, and then maybe MSTY just takes the just takes the vol right back out. Um, and it would be like MSTY might end up just being like, what if you could sell covered calls on your Bitcoin stack instead of selling covered calls on your MSTR stack? Yeah, so it'll go up and stabilize somewhere, but I suspect it will underperform strategy, even just buy and hold. Onyx Bell, dude face, that was a vote to allow strategy to increase the outstanding share amount beyond the limit they need to do filing to continue. Yeah, that makes more sense. So they got the approval to just sell a bajillion shares, but then they have to file a new ATM every time they spend what they said they were going to spend. But they don't have to keep going back to the well and asking for increasing share limits. That sounds right. With the ATM basically depleted, do you think the introduction of a new 21 billion of common stock shelf offering would lead to shareholders abandoning MSTR? Yeah, that is a little bit of a worry. Half the people may abandon it, but then the other half might just be like doing backflips, like, yes, more ATM. I don't know. When Mahler's little shop opens up, it may present a higher return opportunity, at least in the near term. Yeah, there's there's more competitors in the space, but that's kind of like um, the I win easy button, because even so, MSTR was the only player in the game. They had 100% market share of Bitcoin derivatives. Now, I think market share itself is probably one of the worst indicators, because then every time you get a competitor, like even if it's a tiny fraction, then your market share went down to 99%. Maybe it goes down to 70, 80, 50%. But if your profits are still going up, it doesn't really matter that your market share is going down. And that's just in TradFi land. In Bitcoin land, you can't just produce more Bitcoin, like you can roll more cars off the assembly line. So in that sense, there there's just, more people cooperatively driving the price up. Like even if your competitors gouge out, some big chunk of market share, um, Maulers, what is it called? 21, called 21 something, whatever the hell it is. Um, even if some people start moving some money over, it's really not going to matter, because Bitcoin's going to be pumped. And then if strategy is still leveraged on Bitcoin, then all of these other competitors are just pumping strategy's bags. So it's like it's just a win-win. And I don't really care how many new competitors enter the space. The only thing that I really care about is whether um, strategy starts irresponsibly managing their debt. That's that's one thing that I guess would cause me to falsify um, my belief in strategy. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. They've been pretty good so far. By the time they screw up with the leverage, I'll probably be dead, and I won't care. Sanatogen, let's see. Assumed I'd go with MSTY on an uptrend and winter on a down. I haven't looked at winter. You're welcome. Dana says, what about the 21 billion convertible bonds? They've barely touched that and they're under leveraged. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. They need to get on the ball. We need to see her some announcements. I was just saying they need to manage the leverage responsibly, but like, come on, man. Let's make it happen. All right, let's minimize these and let's just take a look at the trades. All right, so the main account, I started screwing around with GME just on the announcement that they were going to buy some Bitcoin, but I guess they haven't bought it. So I'm kind of violating my Bitcoin treasury company only rule here. So somebody said that they were going to give GameStop until earnings to make some kind of announcement, and then at that point just decide that they're bullshitting or faking the funk. So maybe that makes sense. But I'm gonna have to put them on the clock. All right, so let's just assume that strategy trades sideways through, when is earnings? The 5th? I mean the 3rd? Anyway. Oh, that's gonna suck. So unfortunately, I probably won't be recording the rest of the week. I fly out to Nashville. My son's graduating this Saturday. So I probably won't have any episodes until, assuming I can get to a computer in Orlando, I might be able to do my show. Otherwise, if it's just too crazy, I might not go live again for 2 weeks. I'll take the laptop and see what I can do. But anyway, so I might have to just I might be doing this on my phone on earnings day. I'll just close the, you know what? I could just close them now. I could just close these positions now. I don't think I'll forget. If I forget and the price runs to 400, I'd be kind of pissed. Interesting. All right, so I'm gonna close all these call debit spreads. Take some profits here. I'm just gonna close them all. It's a little bit misleading because it changed the trade price when I took profits in the other 10 of them. So it looks like I paid $1.70 for these, and now I'm selling them for $3, which would be doubling my money. But I'm pretty sure I paid at least $2.50 for these. So this is probably only like a 10% profit. I don't think this is real. I don't think that this, I mean, the $3 credit is real, but I don't think I only paid $1.70 for these. I'd have to go and dig through there. So I don't know why Tasty Trade is calculating that it, oh god, calculating it that way, but and you can see here's another reason why I very seldom trade spreads with strategy, because it's so hard to get fills. I think that filled. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, I was happy to just to get rid of those debit spreads, to be honest. I would have liked to gotten, made a bajillion on them, but it was just they just had to go. All right, so if I do close these, I got to come up with 5 grand at these prices, or excuse me, 2,500 at these prices. So that's pretty good. But if I close these others as well, that's another 4,500. But I can wait until was it Wednesday or Thursday? Let me pull this up on the other screen. I've got an earnings call list. All right, so I took a little bit of profits. I think I'm happy with that for now. These 300 strike poor man's covered calls are finally winners. I'll be happy to just delete those. But yeah, tempted to take a little bit of leverage off before earnings as well, because based on Q1, I think they're going to have to report a bunch of negative earnings per share based on Bitcoin's price, right? But negative earnings is not going to be like a surprise on a strategy earnings call. So not sure I should worry about that too much. All right, so Tesla's finally doing much better. My 630s, they're basically like Tesla 1080s, are slightly in profit. I'll go ahead and just hold on to these for another week or two before I roll, so that I don't have to roll for a debit. So yeah, really not much else to do here, but enjoy the pump. Took a little bit of profits with the debit spreads. Let's just take a look at IMST and Misty. Ex-dividend date from Misty says it was 410, so we're going to get another dividend in 2 weeks, so they'll probably be ahead of me again. And this is can't be correct for IMST. I don't know when they're going to hand out their first dividend. But since I bought MSTY, they're down $3 a share, which makes sense because MSTR is also down. And I've only had a IMST for a couple of weeks, but they're up 10%. So be interesting to see how competitive their dividend is. I think they're projecting less. All right, so here's the joint account. Yeah. I had added a covered call, I believe. Yeah, 6 days ago. Or at least I rolled it. So not really in a rush to roll it. Let's see, do I have cash? Probably not. I could afford to take this one covered call off before earnings, but can't really afford to take this one off. I could sell shares to pay for it. So yeah, I think this is going to be a whole lot of nothing. This is just going to be and kind of doing an account check before I go silent for a couple of weeks. My discretionary spending, I've still got the 2 Tesla credit spreads. So even though it says I have 2,900 and available, 2,000 of it is still collateral for these spreads. But even after that, I should have $900 in cash. I could use that to close this covered call right before earnings. Maybe I'll do that. And here's the challenge account. I won't take off any covered calls. So I've got 400 shares. I've got 4 leaps. So I should have 8 covered calls on at any given time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. With the price being up again, I should probably keep removing leverage and adding shares. Well, let's see. This is against shares. If I close 3 of these, it's going to give me enough to buy another 100 shares, I think. No insta-fill. All right. Price going up, removing leverage. So let's see. Now I've got 1 long call, 500 shares. I should be able to sell 6 covered calls. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to put 1 more back on, or maybe I'll just, yeah, I got to put 1 more back on. So let's go out here. Unfortunately, 46 days is not available. So I guess I'll go to 39 days. And I'm just going to go to the expected move. Let's see how much cash I got left over. 3,900 in cash. With the price being up, I don't necessarily want to add more leverage, but let's see, I need 78 more shares to get to another 100. If I sold all of this, what's that going to give me? 16 grand. That's only going to get me about 50 shares. If I take off the last poor man's covered call, don't think I want to do that. So let me just add a few more shares. How many shares can I get with 4,000 bucks? You can definitely get 10, so let's do 11. $5 in cash. Sweet. I think I like it. So I got 5 long positions. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 short positions. I would roll this with 25 days left, but it's pretty upside down. Let's see, $7 in the money, which leaves about 2,400 in extrinsic value here. So I'm just going to let this cook. I need to ungroup all this crap. Oh, I can only pick 4. All right, cool. Since this is a challenge account, I won't take any covered calls off before earnings. So that will be a good test of missing out on unlimited upside if we go to 400, 450, a bajillion, something like that. All right, let me check the 5K account, the 5K challenge. I had, yeah, I sold 100 shares of iron because they were called away. So let's see how much buying power I actually have. I've got 3,600 minus 1,000 in option collateral, which leaves me 2,500 to spend. In an account this size, having two 1080s is not the end of the world. That's like almost 10% of the portfolio. Probably is a little bit excessive. So maybe I'll sell one. I think I sold, yeah, I sold one last week for 700 bucks. Let's sell one more. It's going to give me a little bit more premium to play with. So that leaves my miners down. I just have the Wolf in an iron put. CLSK and Riot seem to be the most liquid and easily tradable. So I think I'm just going to jump into CLSK and sell puts with whatever buying power I've got left. I think it's this minus 1,000, right? 2,400. So I think I can. That's going to be cutting it close. Let's do 2, and then let's see what my buying power looks like. Real quick on how much return on capital I should get for the week. So $800 in collateral in order to sell this cash secured put at the $8 strike. I'm getting paid 20 bucks, almost 24. If I was getting 24, that would be 3% returns. 16 is about 2%. So this is pretty decent. All right, we'll give this a second to reconfigure. All right, 44 minus 26. Is that 18? So I can actually sell 2 more. If you already own the position, you can just, go to here and like if I wanted to close it, it's automatically defaulted to here. But if I just want to open 2 more positions, I can just do it this way. I don't have to go to the options chain, but I am probably going to have to bump that down to 22. There we go. I'm going to be a little bit CLSK heavy after this, but it seems to be the most easily traded. I don't know if CLSK is a better company than Iron or Riot or Wolf. As a pure option seller, I really just care about how easy it is to get in and out of my trades, and is the premium worth it? Is my return on capital worth my time? So looks like I've used all my buying power. This not that one. Yeah, 530. So the 530 Riot and the 530 Iron, I'm basically copy trading my brother-in-law. I convinced him to become a degenerate as well. So I thought selling something that was a little bit farther out of the money instead of the weekly at the money cash secured puts that I usually do was nice training wheels for somebody who is new. So probably won't roll these for a week or two. I sold them for 32 though, and I could buy it back for 20. Not going to roll it, but let's just see if I did want to roll this out a week. Okay, I can't roll it out a week because the June 13th is missing. They haven't populated it yet. So I'd have to roll it out 2 weeks. And I could probably roll it up, actually same strike. So I could roll to the same strike and collect a little bit more premium. Like that's not the worst trade in the world. Volumes kind of sucks, but there's somewhat decent open interest. But the bid ask spread is pretty good, 3 cents wide, and there's a ton of bids and a ton of asks. So you'll be able to get fills here. Um, and that's the only thing that I hesitate with Iron about sometimes. Every once in a while, it seems like it's the liquidity for certain strikes sucks. But yeah, that's the plan on this one. Just rolling the cash secured put every couple of weeks. And if the price does bottom out of Iron or Riot, at least he will get a favorable entry price. He'll be buying in at $5 a share instead of just buying in at what's Iron right now? Yeah, instead of paying $600 a share, excuse me, not 600 share, 600 for 100 shares. If he's assigned at 5, that'll feel much more that'll be much more palatable than him being down 20% in 2 weeks. So, as a new option seller, I wanted him to kind of have experience a little bit of success early so that he doesn't get discouraged. All right, so that's everything. Let's take a look at the chats and call it a day. Joshy says IMST first dividend 528. Oh, really? So they're going to be like 2 months before they give the first div. Okay, that's interesting. Andre, what's going on? Let's see. Correction to my question from last week about Josh Mann's comment about leaps. He said 1080s will get crowded, I bet, seeing as it was struck as the highest strike available. Yeah, so I think he means the same thing. I've heard him talk about his experience as a market maker, and I think he said that anybody that was making a market in strategy right now at as low as the option prices are. He's like, as soon as, those prices got wrecked, he would just fire. He'd fire anybody that made that market. So I'm thinking it's the same thing, but if the 1080s get actually, you know what? I could be wrong. Um, it's either he's either saying that he thinks that the 1080s will go in the money, or that there's going to be a lot of FOMO into the 1080s, meaning all the degens, when they see the price running, will pile in, and you'll see the buying, on the order books will just be like they'll be crowding into the buy side, because the top of the option chain is the cheapest one. So all of the degens are going to immediately go to the cheapest one they can buy. Um, People with millions of dollars can go get the at the money ones. They can go for 10% out of the money. Like, Grain's new favorite strikes are the ones that are slightly out of the money, and he can pay those prices. Whereas somebody with, you know, $1,000 to their name is probably going to the 1080 and buying as many as they can. So it's one of those two things. Either he's saying the trade will get crowded because all the buyers are going to pile onto that strike because it's the cheapest, or he's or he might even be saying that he thinks they'll just go in the money. Um, but it's probably the other one. I bet you when he says it's getting crowded, it just means that there's going to be a bunch of buyers, which would drive the price up, right? That's going to drive the implied vol up. Let me see if this got bumfuggled. Yep. All right, so I got my unfortunately, I rebooted my computer, so my VPN is on and it wrecked Market Chameleon. But if you follow the implied vol spike, once people FOMO and start buying those long calls again at the top of the chain, this implied vol is going to get driven up again. So I'm thinking that's what he means, that people are just going to pile into the buy side of that trade. CT, holding anything other than leaps through earnings feels very brave. Yeah, and it's the other thing too is some people are afraid of IV crush. MSTR doesn't really their chart implied vol chart doesn't really seem to be affected too much by earnings because they're not a TradFi company. Maybe they used to before they bought Bitcoin. But as far as I can tell, when I've looked at the options prices, IV crush after an earnings call really only applies to the expirations under 90 days. So basically up until the next earnings. Like why would IV crush around this earnings affect the options prices for things expiring after the next earnings? So that just seems to be my experience. So leaps, so I think if people are like, "Oh, I'll just wait until after earnings and buy leaps cheaper because of IV crush," I don't think that's a real thing. But I agree with you. So, buying calls under 90 days is like lottery money to me. It's still going to be weird because we were expecting for Bitcoin to be at 100,000 and they'd be getting into the S&P 500. They were going to reverse 4 quarters of negative earnings. And then once the algorithm saw that they were going to qualify for the S&P 500, it was supposed to go nuclear and get front run and blah, blah, blah. And now we're still getting fair value accounting, but it's still not going to be positive. So it's going to be interesting to see how TradFi reacts to the stock now that they can actually have a better um, chance in their mind of being able to evaluate its value Like, maybe they just couldn't figure out intangible, accounting before, so they just didn't bother to try, and now maybe it'll be easier for them to value it, and even though they're not qualifying for S&P 500, maybe they'll kind of, like, go, "Oh, well, it's easier to figure out what strategy's valuation would be if Bitcoin was at 100, and maybe we get a pump anyway." And that's why I don't try to predict what's gonna happen over earnings. But if I think Bitcoin's going up forever and strategy's going up forever, at some point, they could have some kind of historic earnings call, and it just seems like Murphy's Law that if we all short it, if I leave all my covered calls on over earnings, it just seems like that would be the perfect setup for them to still have, like, a pump after earnings based on fair value accounting, and then all my shorts get wrecked. So, I don't know what to think, really. Understood, I agree. So does this mean the call option might be difficult to sell? No. No, so if it does get crowded and there's a bunch of buyers, that means it's gonna be easier to sell it because you got tons of people FOMOing in, and if implied vol is spiked and you could take advantage of that to actually sell at a premium if that all works out perfectly. Um, the more buying and selling activity, the better the liquidity is going to be. So now that's not unless they just completely suck all the volatility out of the out of the stock, which is like the opposite of what they're doing, then it might be hard to get a fill and find a it might be hard to find a buyer when you're selling, but it's the most highly traded stock right now, so I don't think that's a problem. Dude face, I think we undervalued the position in the QQQ that strategy already has. That is a catalyst that is still playing out as more and more that index leads all growth funds. That's a good point. People front run it and then the price came down and I think people were like bummed out thinking that that was going to be a bigger immediate catalyst and there wouldn't be a correction or something. So let's see. Strategy says 5-1 after market close. Yeah, so 29:30 Thursday. Yep. I'll have to sneak on my phone and close a few covered calls on Thursday. All right. Um, Thanks for tuning in. I guess I'll probably be somewhat on vacation, somewhat on a working vacation. So I might not be live again for a couple of weeks. But thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully we'll go to the moon and we can all race yachts someday.